My father once owned a small garden. It wasn't a big or fancy garden, just a humble patch of earth in our backyard, but it was his pride and joy. He spent hours every weekend tending to the plants. He taught me how to plant seeds, how to water them just right, and how to care for the soil. I remember the way he would gently kneel down, inspecting the leaves for pests or checking the moisture of the soil with his fingertips. He had such patience, such a natural rhythm in the way he cared for his garden. One year, when I was in my late teens, I thought I knew better. I was eager to impress my father, to show him that I could make the garden flourish faster than he ever had. I convinced myself that I could do better if I just made a few changes. I read some articles, learned about fertilizers, and decided that if I used more, the plants would grow faster and stronger. I wanted the brightest flowers, the tallest plants. I wanted to make my father proud. For a while, it seemed like my plan was working. The garden did grow faster. The flowers bloomed early, and the plants stood tall, almost unnaturally so. I remember feeling a rush of excitement. I thought I had discovered a shortcut, a way to make nature bend to my will. But soon enough, things began to change. The leaves turned yellow. The stems that had once stood so proudly began to droop. The flowers that had been so bright began to wither, their petals falling to the ground. The garden that I had tried so hard to improve was falling apart before my eyes. I remember feeling embarrassed, thinking I had ruined what my father had nurtured for years. The once lush greenery now looked weak, fragile, and sickly. I avoided going into the backyard for a few days, afraid of seeing the result of my mistake. I thought my father would be angry, that he would scold me for ruining something that he loved. Instead, one afternoon, he found me sitting on the back porch, staring at the wilting garden. He sat down beside me, his eyes soft as he looked at the drooping plants. He didn't scold me. He didn't say a word of reproach. Instead, he said, "Sometimes you learn more from overdoing things than doing nothing at all." His voice was calm, without judgment. He explained that patience is one of the hardest things to master, and that nature cannot be rushed. He said, "The garden needs time, just like everything else in life. It's not about how fast it grows, but how well you care for it." That day, we worked together to help the garden recover. We removed the withered plants, carefully pruned the ones that could still be saved, and adjusted the soil. My father showed me how to mix compost in to nourish the weakened roots, and how to water just enough, but not too much. It was slow work, but it was also soothing. I began to understand that the garden wasn't just about plants. It was a reflection of life. It needed care, attention, and most of all, time. The garden taught me that everything in life needs time to grow. Relationships, dreams, even ourselves. There are no shortcuts. The things that matter most need to be nurtured with patience and care. If you try to force things, they might grow quickly, but they will lack the strength to endure. Real growth happens slowly, quietly, and often without immediate results. Months later, the garden began to thrive again. The flowers bloomed naturally, their colors rich and deep, and the plants stood strong, their leaves green and vibrant. It was a different kind of beauty, one that came not from rushing or forcing, but from careful tending and patience. I learned that true growth cannot be rushed. It takes time, setbacks, and learning from mistakes. Life is like that garden. It doesn't need you to rush it, only to care for it with patience. Let your plans take root, water them, and give them time. Growth can't be rushed, but it's always worth the wait. And sometimes, the mistakes we make along the way become the greatest teachers. They remind us to slow down, to respect the natural pace of things, and to find beauty in the process rather than just the outcome. Growth isn't always easy or quick, but it's always worth it if you're willing to put in the time and care.